Hello and welcome to the Maple Grove City Report. I'm Dave Kaiser from Northwest Community Television with Heidi Nelson, Maple Grove City Administrator. We've got a lot to talk about in this update. We've got the council meeting from November 7th, a number of things happening around town, and also some election news that you might want to hear. But let's start first with the meeting before the meeting. There was some ongoing talk about the city's budget and also sign ordinance. Just give us a quick update on how those two topics are going.
Yeah, so this was sort of our last budget workshop for the 2017 budget year. We reviewed the budget back in late summer, August, September timeframe with the council before we set the preliminary levy in September. So now it was really more talking about what potential positions the city might consider adding.
Okay.
So we had good discussion about that. That will come back to the council on December 5th for adoption for the final budget. We're sitting at about a 3% levy increase for 2017, which reflects for the average Maple Grove home about $7.70 per year increase, about 60 cents a month. The council was comfortable with that levy at the time we set it at a preliminary. It looks like we're going to hold through with that. Some new positions that are being considered, of course, patrol officer, you know, as our population grows and traffic issues and all those kinds of things in the community. We need to keep up with our police patrol staff. We're looking at adding some IS staff and somebody on the fire education side. So those are just a couple of highlights of the positions that we're looking in, and those final decisions will come before the council in December. Okay,
very good. And the other part of that special meeting, talking a little bit about signs. And we've talked about this a time or two. Where are we on signs and sign ordinance in the city?
Yeah, so we're looking at some potential revisions to the sign ordinance to allow some minimal use of dynamic signs in town. That has not been something that the city has had in its code. So we're looking at some amendments around that issue, as well as the illumination and amount of signage a business can have. We've had a couple concerns raised about a couple recent businesses that the signs were very brightly lit and there seemed to be a lot of signage, and so we're just kind of taking a look at some of those metrics to see if we want to tweak some of that to maybe bring the brightness down a bit and then look at, you know, how much signage is really allowed on a commercial building.
Very good. So a couple highlights from the meeting before the meeting. Now let's get to the council meeting, and we're going to talk about one item on the consent agenda, which again has been a topic that's been discussed by other cities and now a little bit by Maple Grove. Tell us a little bit about the predatory offender residency.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I think this issue certainly got some local attention with the proposal to establish kind of a residential care facility up in Dayton, just to our north, for predatory offenders. There was a lot of community concern raised over that up in Dayton, and then Dayton subsequently passed an ordinance. We at the city have been kind of following along this issue. A lot of discussion at a state level, because this is really kind of a state issue about they have a lot of predatory offenders sitting in civil commitment type situations. They've served their sentence. What do we do with these offenders? And so every community is sort of faced with, how does this impact our community? Other communities around us have passed ordinances. We felt it was necessary to get an ordinance in place that put some residency restrictions on the predatory offender issue. So we're doing this under our kind of our police power section of the agenda. So you know, this will go into effect now, and so if we have this kind of a situation come to Maple Grove, we'll have some tools to deal with it.
Very good. Let's move to special business, and some great special business at this meeting, some recognitions, and also a new police officer. Tell us about the new officer.
Yeah, these are always kind of the fun part of the agenda, the celebrations. We were able to have new police officer Aaron Rorda take his oath of office, and so that was a good day. He's kind of a local guy, grew up here, and so we welcome him to the police force, and he had quite a crowd there with his family, and usually quite a bit of the department comes out to support these oath of office events.
Fantastic. And first recognition was a person, if you have had anything to do with National Night Out in Maple Grove, you know this guy. Tell us a little bit about Todd Strege and what he's done in this recognition.
Yeah, so Todd was recognized as the Practitioner of the Year for the Minnesota Crime Prevention Association.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so very well deserved. I think, you know, he he does a great job with our National Night Out event, which has been recognized across the nation as one of the most successful, well-organized events. We have many aspects to it. It's kind of a day-long event. We really try to get our block captains from a crime prevention perspective involved, and he just does an amazing job with that. In addition to that, he's involved with a number of other things at the city,
Right.
liquor compliance, different events, different crime prevention activities throughout the community. So congratulations to Todd, and we really do thank him for his work and commitment to the community.
Right, and just as important, but a little bit more behind the scenes,
Yep.
Jim Sadler. Let's talk a little bit about Jim and his recognition.
Yeah, so he was recognized. He's just finishing up his year as the chair of the American Water Works Association, so he was provided that recognition. Jim Sadler is our utilities supervisor.
Right.
And you're right, it is a little bit more behind the scenes, but hugely important
Right.
asset of our city is the quality of our water and our provision of safe water to our residents and businesses. And so, Jim makes sure that happens every day. And people probably don't understand what happens behind the scenes to make that happen, but it's a pretty big operation. And we have great water here in Maple Grove, a little hard, but I think they do a great job. And so Jim's efforts were recognized by the
Congratulations
Yep.
to Jim. Fantastic. Public hearings, always some business news in this area, and the same this time. Tell us about a new Japanese restaurant and also a little work at the Menards site.
Yep, so we're having a new Japanese steakhouse. It's called the Sumo Japanese Sushi Steakhouse. It's kind of almost right across the street from the government center. There was an existing kind of similar type business
Right.
there now, right next to Three Squares. So they came in for their liquor license. They plan to open in December. They've been doing a lot of renovation work in the space, so I think they're going to kind of put a fresh look to it. The staff, the manager and the chef were there that night. They're from Tibet, so I think kind of a fun new thing coming to town. So yeah, so we've got that liquor license approved for them on
And the
Monday night.
Menards then, moving further up in town,
Yep.
there's some work happening there, some variances and things that had to be done. Tell us about that project.
Yeah, so they're expanding some of their lumber yard and some of their space kind of to the west and north of their existing building up off of 95th there. So they'll probably get going on that expansion here pretty soon. We just need to vacate some drainage utility easements to make way for that.
All right, let's jump ahead to a couple staff reports. And Ken Ashfield had a chance to talk about roads, his favorite thing. And he had very good news about 494.
Yep.
It's open.
It's open. It opened, I think, last Friday afternoon. I think we got an email at about 10 a.m. that they were going to open all lanes at 2 o'clock that afternoon. And I think there was a big amen, hallelujah, all through City
Yes.
Hall. That has been a long-awaited project, 2 years
Right.
of construction. But boy, is it nice to have that open now. So.
And a ribbon cutting event that's coming up on November 16th
Yep.
at 10:30 in the morning for
Yep.
that official opening of that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, 610 has had some nice weather, so tell us
Man.
about what's been happening there.
Yeah, this weather has been a blessing for more than just our own enjoyment, but for finishing up these road construction
Yeah.
projects. We're still on track to get this open by Thanksgiving timeframe, and they really have made progress in paving. They had made arrangements for sort of you can do the concrete work in colder weather, but you have to have kind of special conditions to do that or arrangements to do that, and they haven't had to pull those triggers yet.
Oh,
so it's been a great couple of weeks here, and so we'll keep track of where we're at with progress, but they are making a lot of progress every day out there.
Very good.
Yep.
And in your notes then from the meeting, speaking of transportation, let's touch on Hennepin County working with you
Yep.
on County 81. Tell
Yep.
us what's happening there around Elm Creek Boulevard.
Yeah, so as you'll recall, we had a number of accidents this fall up at that intersection, and some concern about the timing of the traffic lights. We have 2 sets of lights there at kind of the 2 intersections. You have the entrance ramp to 610 there occurring at one of those, and so we partnered with Hennepin County. These are Hennepin County roads. They're in our city, so we have great concerns, and our residents are traveling them every day. So we took a look at how are the signals timed? What's the visibility of those signals? Are there things that they could tweak immediately, and then more long-term things? So
Okay.
information went out about some of the things that they are doing immediately. They put some more signage up, another signal pole, getting some more reflective type material on some of the signals, really to call them to people's attention. But they're continuing to look at kind of the timing of things. And we do think with the opening of 610, it'll take some pressure off
Exactly.
this exit and this intersection. This has kind of been the entry point to 610. So we're kind of waiting to see what happens there when 610 opens as well.
Okay, very
Yep.
good. Now, when the council meeting occurred, it was before the election,
It was.
so these results weren't there, but let's talk a little bit about election. First of all, after that meeting and the next day, the election was held, and in Maple Grove, you have a new council member
Yep.
and a returning council member,
Yep.
Christy Barnett and Judy Hansen. Christy Barnett, 11,062 votes, and Judith Hansen, 9,121 votes. So
Yep.
the top two are moving to the council or staying on the council. So
That's correct.
that has to be good to have that process finished with.
Yes, yeah, it is good to have the election behind us. This was a big one this year. We had a lot of changes happening at the, at the Hennepin County level. We deployed the
Yep.
iPads at the polling stations. That was a big learning curve for our election judges, but I'm happy to say it all went
They
off
worked.
pretty seamlessly.
Yep.
There were little hiccups here and there, but we worked through it. One interesting piece is we had a lot of students from the high school that serve as election judges, and we found that they're wonderful iPad technicians.
I believe that. Yes.
So a lot of times if there was an issue with technology, it got handed off to the high school student, and
very
they sort
good.
of intuitively knew how to handle that. So
Very good.
we appreciate the work of our election judges and their dedication and their willingness to come in and serve. Our election staff, because of the absentee voting this year, the changes, it felt like we were almost running an election for the entire week up
Right.
to the election. We had that much volume of absentee voters at City Hall. And so they put in some long hours. And so thank you to our full-time staff, thank you to the election judges, and thank you to the high school for some of the folks that they allowed to come and serve as election judges as
Very
well.
good. And you mentioned it a little at the council meeting, and I'm sure there's been discussions since that time about the absentees. So
Yeah.
what were roughly the numbers, and what are you reviewing now, and maybe other cities at the same time reviewing to talk about what's the next process
Yeah.
of when this happens again?
Yeah, we processed about 10,000 absentee ballots for this election, and that week prior, about 6,000. So that was a tremendous amount of volume. And we knew it would be higher, but I think every city sort of felt that pinch of tremendously high turnout for absentee voting.
Right.
So we have to go through and kind of think about, as we lead into the gubernatorial election and then the next presidential, how do we do that better? And do we set up a couple precincts? We spend a tremendous amount of resource making Election Day happen. And
Right.
so how much more do we resource that time leading up to the election?
Sure.
It's expensive. Our election costs this year in Maple Grove are about $300,000. It's very expensive to put on an election. And so, how much more resource do you add? Because what we found is that the day at the polls, the volume was pretty manageable.
Okay,
And
so
we
it
didn't-
was a little bit less. You did
Yeah.
see that.
I think in general, people found that they didn't have tremendously long waits at
Right.
the polls. And so we kind of got to think that through about where best do we put those resources to make the election successful, and we'll be working on that in the next year ahead.
All right, stay tuned for that.
Yep.
A couple other updates that were given at the council meeting that you probably have heard here before. The Arts Center, we've talked about their
Yeah.
space, and now it sounds like they have a space.
Yeah, they were able to secure an arrangement with the fountains, and thanks to Kimco, the owners of the fountains, they are providing them a space. They're going to have to pay the utilities, but they aren't going to have to pay rent, and so that kind of helps support this community initiative around the arts. So they're going to be working in that space to kind of get it ready for their use, but we anticipate they'll be, up and running here in the next few months. So
Okay,
yeah,
very good.
Good news on that.
We've talked about the survey that was given to
Yep.
residents,
Yep.
and that is coming closer and closer. I understand some preliminary results back to the city
Yep.
that are looking good,
Yep.
and then the formal presentation in January. Is that correct?
January 21, we've got that slated to be in front of the council. So we're kind of doing some staff level work on that right now.
Okay.
But good results, I think, so far that we've seen. But yeah, look for that formal presentation on January 21.
Okay, and
Yep.
one other note, youth sports, we've talked a little bit about that
Yep.
process,
Yep.
going through some of the interior work of some of the commissions, and now it's coming forward, and that'll be in January as well?
No, November 21. That's
November.
Coming, yep,
Okay,
November
correct.
21, that's coming in front of the council. And you know what, now that I think about that, I had January 21, it's January 17.
There we go. Yep, I was
That's how
looking
we
at my
were
dates
tricking
here.
the
So
dates.
January 17th for
Yes.
the results from the survey.
Yep.
November 21st, youth sports.
That's correct.
Got it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So that is a quick wrap up of the council meeting, and we do have some other notes, but we wanted to get to something that's even more timely as we're taping this on November 10th. looking at it today here. Let's talk about Maple Grove High School, and something has occurred there that the city is somewhat involved in from helping out. Give us a little background information.
Yeah, so yesterday afternoon we became aware that there was an incident up at the high school where racist graffiti was scrawled across some of the walls in the bathroom at one of the bathrooms up at the high school. You know, the school district reported this right away. Clearly, this is this is something that doesn't reflect the Maple Grove community. This type of racist behavior, won't be tolerated in the school district and won't be tolerated here in this community. And so we are working very collaboratively with the school district on their investigation and the police department's investigation to identify, who is responsible for this. We do know that, this has a big impact on the school district. It has a big impact on the community. And given, kind of the times that we're in, it's captured a lot of media attention, and so we're responding in the best way that we can. We do need to allow the investigation some time to play out, but yeah, this is an unfortunate incident, and it's being taken seriously, and I think the message is that it doesn't reflect this community and it won't be tolerated. So more to come on that, but we're in the investigative mode.
We'll keep you up to date on that. A few other notes for the final couple minutes here, just some other things happening around town. We mentioned the 494 ribbon cutting. Let's talk about the skating loop. It's funny to even talk about it, but what are you thinking about this skating loop? Is there something that can be done?
I'm thinking it's not going to happen soon.
Yes, probably right.
You look out though at the 15-day forecast, and we're in highs in the 30s and 40s. So I think that the weather's eventually going to come to town here, but this week not so much. I think they had targeted. They like to have it open before Thanksgiving. We'll see how that goes, because there is some prep work involved in getting the rink flooded and frozen and all the equipment in place. But yeah, this weather, we could have almost left the fountain open longer.
That is true.
These last few weekends with the 70-degree days have been just like late summer or early fall afternoons. And
we'll take it. But what it has done is it has allowed people to clean up the yard. So another part of the city is really benefiting the Yardway site. Tell us about the busyness of that site.
It's been crazy. The good news is Maple Grove Parkway opened up kind of just before, I think, the big leaf weekend. But maybe people sort of give up on the leaves at some point if the weather turns. Well, the weather hasn't turned, and so
no excuses.
We're going to
have
really clean yards at the end of this season. So I think we've seen a really high volume up there. Seems to be working out pretty well with the new access point and with the parkway open, access from both the south and the north. But yeah, they'll be open again this weekend. Hours Monday through Saturday 8 to 7, and then Sunday 11 to 7. So yeah, I think it looks like this weekend's going to be another yard cleanup weekend.
I think so. Final note, Wi-Fi on the buses. This is a nice treat. Tell us about that.
It is. So a lot of the suburban transit providers, whether it's Southwest or Plymouth, the Apple Valley group down on the south side, have added Wi-Fi to their fleet of buses. I think it's become sort of, a standard expected amenity on the bus services. So we'll be adding that in by the end of the year, and that becomes part of our program going forward. And just, it's another service we can provide to our transit riders at a pretty nominal cost, and makes their ride a little bit more pleasurable.
Very good. Well, many other things happening in the city of Maple Grove. Encourage you to go to the city's website or Facebook page to find out more. Heidi, thank you again for your time. Let's leave you with some information about contacts. We've mentioned the website a number of times. Here is that website, maplegrovemn.gov. The next council meeting is on November 21st at 7:30 at the Government Center, and the phone number is 763-494-6000. Viewer response line 763-533-1710 for questions or comments about the program. For Heidi Nelson, I'm Dave Kaiser. Thanks for joining us on the Maple Grove City Report.